Good morning. We're going to talk a little bit about recovery basics, things that you should have in your car or your truck to help get you back onto the trail, if you will. And just what I've settled on is good for me and actually seen put to good use in the hills here year round. So first things first, what comes to mind is high lift jacks. I see them on Jeeps, I see them on trucks. I have one at home, just a farm jack. It's an amazing tool. It's great for pulling T-posts out of the ground. It's great for maybe lifting your vehicle up by the tailgate, but they have extremely limited utility and they can be real dangerous if you're not familiar with operating them under pressure. So they're an okay tool. They're super bulky. I brought one the first few years and I've never seen one used and on the trails here. What I have seen used on the trails here are winches, tow straps, and a couple other essentially pulleys that I can't think of the name of right now. So I'll just go through what I keep in the truck year round, really. I don't change anything out for season here. First things first, a good pair of gloves. I like these. I've settled on these. These ones are made by a company called Atlas, and they're particularly tough. They're tougher than leather for me. They work in snow, mud, and oftentimes when you get stuck, it's in some gross stuff. So gloves. Number one. Next thing, I will move our shower off the hood of the truck here so it doesn't distract us too much. Just wanted to show you guys how we leave it during the day. The hood of this truck is not very sloped, so it likes to sit up there nicely. So just move this out of the scene. Very good. Number two, of course, is some kind of an orange vest. Ridiculously light, easy, just put it in there. And let's just get to the winch itself. So I put a 2-inch receiver on the front of this truck myself. It has 8 grade 8 bolts, I don't know, something like that. Big ass bolts holding it to the frame of the truck itself. So I tell you all that because I wanted to make sure that I had an extremely secure platform if I needed to self-extract with this thing. This vehicle unloaded I think weighs around 7,500 pounds, so it's got a little gravity to it. So I installed a 2-inch receiver on the front, just like you might on the back. The other thing, in addition to knowing that the receiver itself is sturdy as heck and is pulling right on the frame rails of the truck, this winch is on a little carriage here, and God forbid, if need be, I can actually take this winch out on this frame right here. I'll get a little shot kind of showing you what's doing under here with the GoPro in a minute. But I can put this on the back of the truck. I do have enough a long ass jumper cable essentially that will bridge the 20 feet, whatever it is, from here to the back of the truck, or from the battery to the back of the truck. It wouldn't need to go right to the front, but that could be extremely useful. I haven't had to do it. I planned it out because before I had this vehicle and before I had a winch, I had a 99 Jeep XJ, so a Jeep Cherokee, and that's what I did a lot of hunting and adventures in. And I got that thing stuck a couple times, and I could have very easily got it out with just a winch. And well, that's what got me out. You know, other vehicles of similar sizes just kind of pulling me out of the ditch or whatever. So I just keep this on the winch year round. This is just basically a winch. It's a winch cover, but it's like a little barbecue cover, you know, just a little waterproof cover. It's held up surprisingly well, despite a couple holes. I went with a Smittybilt. Warren makes great winches, and I've heard great things about the Badlands winches and the Harbor Freight winches. No problem with those. I just went with this one. I wanted something kind of middle of the pack. I went with a 12,000 pound winch. I wanted to make sure that even if I just had to do a straight pull and not utilize leverage or pulling ratios, that it would have enough power to just pull this thing right out of a ditch. And again, of course, since I've had this installed, I haven't had to self-rescue, but I have rescued over a dozen other people from snow drifts, most commonly, and a couple pulling them back onto the trail, and this thing is just insanely strong. I've also done some tree work with that, and I'll tell you about that another time, but I said tree work. So this thing is fantastic. Definitely recommend a winch. I just run the stock steel line on this, and again, just like with all your tools, I'd recommend practicing with this at home. Find a thick ass tree, put your vehicle in neutral, put your vehicle in park, and just experiment with it. Learn how to hook it up, get comfortable with it, learn the free spool function versus letting it out by hand. Just verify the darn thing works. So you may see my winch has a little bend to the front of it here. That's because I didn't respect an approach angle on a particular trail, and I bumped my nose on it. But the winch still works fine, but I do need some new, these are called fair lead rollers. They come in all different kind of designs. They just let the winch, or the winch cable, feed into the spool at those harder angles, and well, just provides a roller for it that's strong enough to take it. So this one's waterproof, not that it really needs it in this state we're in. Right, so next thing's next. I just use a dry lube on this before I use it. They suggest you do. It doesn't really gather much dirt, and this thing being a steel cable, it will rust. So yeah, I just use a WD-40 dry lube that's approved for ball bearings and all those fun things. Of course, the jumper cables, just recovery stuff. Make sure they're long enough. These are the wimpy ones. My wife stole the good ones, of course. And I would recommend having ones that can kind of reach a funny gap, because let's just say your battery's on this side and the vehicle that pulls up to you, the battery's over here, or you're side by side, like there's a vehicle right here facing the same direction, and your battery's over there and their battery's over there, and that's the only way you can. You might have to bridge a good, gosh, like 15 feet to get there. So make sure you have a solid set of jumper cables, even if you're not trying to bridge the gap between your battery and perhaps your rear hitch receiver. All right, another great item for recovery is just a saw. Like I related to you, I don't really mess with axes or hatchets out here. I do mess with saws, and I do love chainsaws. So if you have one, definitely not a bad thing to throw in the truck. If you got a down tree, or if you need to down a tree, I don't need to tell you, a chainsaw or even this will make really quick work of it. It can be super helpful for all different aspects of recovery. If you need to get creative with creating a recovery strategy, a saw can help quite a bit. All right, let's just talk about what's in my kit. It's pretty darn simple. I got a couple extra things than what comes with it. Standard. So they just have these little handles that you put onto your tow cable here, or the tow hook itself, so you can pull it with your hand. And honestly, it is actually a lot more pleasant trying to pull this thing out with this than trying to hook your finger in there. So it's not actually a bad thing to keep around. This is called a tree saver strap. It's just a very heavy duty 6-foot strap that, let's just say you were going to put your winch or your snatch block around. The snatch block is the proper name for this big old pulley. Let's just say you were going to go around a tree and hook up somewhere else, or go around a tree and then come back to yourself. This is called a tree saver. I definitely use one of these so you don't just destroy a tree, and it also makes it safer and easier to use your whole kit. Like I said, it's about 6-8 foot reinforced ends that'll go around the tree. This will loop together and be connected by a shackle. So your shackle goes around, you know? And your snatch block is mated to the strap and tree and goes around like that. And then your tow strap goes in between here. I'm not gonna set up like a mock towing video or recovery video. There's so many out there, and there's a couple infamous and fun channels now just for towing and recovery. How cool is that? But there's some in Colorado that are fun, and obviously there's a big one in Utah that's fun. So they're good to check out. Folks often say don't tighten these all the way down when you're doing it because they always get seized up, and then you got to take a wrench to loosen this up. I've adhered to that school of thought and I haven't had a problem. I hear manufacturers and other people say screw them all the way down, but that's just what works for me. You'll find a method that works for you. So again, what I do is when I'm securing it, setting up my recovery, tighten that all the way, then I'll loosen it about a half or a quarter rather, and that keeps it from binding up. All the pressure in here, you can imagine, though this is ridiculously stiff and strong, there is an amount of flex in here. This is iron, so it'll flex. Funkmaster Flex. Alright. And the one that is huge that I love is you can do one of these or you can do one of the kinetic ropes, but this is way cheaper than a kinetic rope. This is I think 30 feet, and it's just a reinforced tow strap. It's rated to, let's see, maximum working load 10,000, maximum brake strength 31,000. So I have pulled most of the vehicles with this. This is great for going around the frames of the vehicles on a lot of newer vehicles, like a hybrid car. It may not have a frame, kind of like a crustacean with just an exoskeleton. So you may have to get creative with how to safely pull that vehicle and not how to safely pull that vehicle is a whole out of where it needs to be recovered and not piece by piece. So these are just awesome. It's 30 feet, so it gives you somewhat of a safe distance if you need to do a tow of a vehicle that's entirely dead out of a trail. But I've done that. I've towed vehicles up some pretty darn steep slopes and on some backcountry trails with this, done recoveries with this. This also joined me in the aforementioned tree work adventure. So of all the recovery tools that I've used the most that I've shown you, it'd be a combination of the winch and this 30-foot strap. It's just, you'd be surprised at how useful it is, and sometimes you really just need that extra 30 feet. I don't need to tell you more about that. I just put this in here. This is my fancy dancy homemade crowbar. You can just use this for all the different things in recovery. Sometimes you just need to get a rock somewhere, something, a little bit of digging action, just something that you can really bang on something if you need. It's also a hammer, so. And of course, make sure you have the controller for your winch. Put it in the safest of safe places in your vehicle, because the winch is pointless without some way to tell it to go in and out. This one is wonderful because it has a wireless function, which I have used the great majority of the time, and it has a wonderful range, and it is so sweet to be 100 feet from the vehicle and safe from the danger zone, and just be able to turn it on and off. I should mention that as well. I said I wasn't going to go into actual recovery scenarios, but I do want to tell you that when you are recovering and there is tension on that steel cable, stay the hell away from it. That thing snaps. The pressure and force with which it is moving can be deadly. So please be very, very careful when you're towing or recovering. There's a lot of energy in between those two things. This one also has a plug-in, which again I recommend that too, because let's just say my batteries in here go out, then again, it's useless. So I keep, this just takes some CR 2032s, I believe, or some AAAs. I can't remember off the top, but I keep both of them with me at all times when adventuring. So that's the gear with me, but just a little bit of knowledge outside of that. I want to remind you that even if you don't have any of this stuff, you can, at the very least, if you need to self-extract, you can start by lowering your tire pressure. So most of our cars, we drive them at 30 to 40 psi, and that's good. That's a good, on the highways and the roads, that's a good combination of rigidity, even it allows for even tire wear, and it allows some compression of the air itself in the tires to help smooth the ride and conform to the bumps in the road. One moment. That being said, the normal tire pressures we run in our vehicles are what we might also call incorrect for squirrel. What we might also call incorrect for self-extraction or even off-roading. Off-roading vehicles, those big old tire Jeeps, or anyone who's really kind of four-wheeling, if you will, they're generally running high single-digit PSI, so 8, 9, 10, 12, 10, 11, 12. But they're running really low PSI, and the reason why is because they're not so worried about even tire wear. They're not so worried about the tire folding or flexing under a hard corner at high speed. The main concern there, and what they're favoring with the low tire pressure, is it allows the tire itself to conform to whatever it is interacting with or rolling over. So if you've got a big old funny shaped rock, if your tire is fully inflated, it'll just roll over the top of that and it'll be pretty rigid. But if you have some air let out of your tire, it allows the mass of the rubber to do more of the forming around than the air, and it'll grab that rock. You can see this on mountain bikes, you can see this in pretty much anywhere in the off-road world. So, oh, chipmunk, I see you. So if you need to self-extract, start by lowering your tire pressure. Warning, you can't drive fast at all with really low PSI. It can be hazardous, so drive with your blinkers on after you self-extract until you get to the Conoco or whatever. And you can put air back in your tires, or just air back up, of course, if you've got a little cigarette lighter powered air compressor, which are great actually. They're surprisingly effective. So that's tire pressure. I've seen the mud boards, of course. I don't use those. They're a little fiddly. They're not super reliable. Their main advantage is they're an option when there's nothing to hook your winch around. That's also a consideration for me, at least. I don't, if it's looking real hairy and there's no trees around, I'm probably not going to do it, especially in this thing. There's no way to self-extract in this thing if there's not something real sturdy to tie to. So the best recovery advice I can give to you is don't need recovery. And that means not waiting until your vehicle's stuck to turn around or decide to turn around. On so many of these trails, they start kind of easy and then they get a little hairier and they get a little hairier. In my experience, they don't get less hairy. So if it's starting to get a little hairy and you're feeling it, and maybe it's beyond you or your vehicle's range of comfort or ability, I would definitely take the nearest turnaround. There's no reason to push it. And honestly, it's unlikely that the payoff per finding an animal is going to be worth wrecking your differential or whatever you bang up back here. I don't bring extra gasoline with me. I just don't have to, fortunately, in this vehicle. It's got, I think, a 32-gallon gas tank, so it can go quite a ways, particularly off-road, before needing it. But when I had the Jeep, I did bring an extra gas tank with me. I don't think I ever needed it. I just fueled up at the very last place, and It was more just for peace of mind, but I don't carry extra gas with me. The back roads in Colorado are such that you can generally do a loop or 2 or 3 or 4 and still have gas. So I don't carry extra with me. The main thing to take away from all this is read the road and have equipment that you can use, and I can't recommend a winch enough. It's been ridiculously helpful. As far as jacks, maybe the last thing we touch on here, this thing comes with a bottle jack, and it's a wonderful bottle jack, but it's kind of comical. This vehicle came lifted from the factory, and the bottle jack they have doesn't reach the frame rail. So it has the power to lift up a corner of it for a tire repair or a tire swap out for the spare, but it doesn't have the height. So again, just kind of going through scenarios before you get out here, what I've had to do, or what I just keep as part of my recovery kit under the truck seat, is a few very solid pieces of wood, a few 6x4 kind of almost railroad tie pieces that make up that space. And also, of course, the little shovel, I can make a little pile under those, but I've got about a good 12 inches of those to take up the space that the bottle jack won't. So make sure you have that, because what a bummer to pull that out and find that on the trail.